I was breathing through it. My team was there. The midwife tells them, like, you guys might want to get some dinner. You're going to be here all night. And my mom and my husband were kind of like, okay, we'll see about that. Oh no. Pause. Okay, baby, you can bring her. Hi, welcome back. I know it's been a minute, like 3 months actually. But, as you saw in the previous clip, Jude woke up and then I just never got to film part two. Things got hectic and chaotic, and it's not easy to do things when you're all on your own, which is what me and Ahmed are here in Vancouver on our own. So finally, I'm sitting down to film part two and the final part of my birth story. And I just wanted to mention a few things before going forward and talking about my experience. I just wanted to say that all birth is natural. It's not that, any kind of birth is inherently bad. But I just felt like I need to share this because I want women to feel empowered in their decisions and their choices. I want them to feel like they have, control or some kind of power over what happens to them, because not all birth has to be traumatic. It doesn't have to be something that you fear or feel like, oh my God, it's just so much pain. It was horrible. Like, I know that is a lot of women's experiences and it's really sad. So I feel like I want to share, because whatever you choose to do, however you choose to give birth, that's completely up to you, and you have to do whatever is right for you. And trust me, your instincts kick in when you're in the situation. But I just wanted to, remove the fear from the situation and kind of just share that it doesn't have to be this huge, scary thing, especially the more physiological, low intervention route, because that's what people are always scared of. They're like, oh my God, you want to do it without an epidural? You want to, like, no help, whatever. And like, they're so scared of that. But to me, the scary thing is like interventions and forceps and the C-section. Was more scary to me than just doing what my body is naturally made to do. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, that it's not about I'm against all other births for everyone. It's just, this is what I wanted for myself, and I do believe that every woman is able to do it under the right circumstances. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say before I start. So, um, where did we leave off? So I'm in the room upstairs. They hooked me up to the Pitocin, and trust me, I was scared. I was really scared of Pitocin. I did not hear good things about Pitocin, and I heard how painful it is. So I was really, really nervous before I could even like get into the zone. I was feeling so defeated, like, oh, I failed because things didn't go according to plan at all. Okay, not at all, but they didn't go according to plan. So I just felt really scared. But then I just was like, okay, just let go, just surrender. This is happening. This is how it's happening. And, getting the Pitocin is going to be the safest way to bring your baby into the world under the circumstances. So yeah, I was hooked up and things just started moving. The nurse kept checking in with me. So she would check in with me every half an hour. And like I said before, they start you at a really low dose. So yeah, the nurse would check in with me and she would see how I was feeling every half an hour. And she would like ask me what is the level I'm at of pain. And you can't really gauge it. It's like hard to gauge because you've never been in labor before. So it's like, oh, I'm at this number, but you don't know what the highest number is. So I guess I was just like guessing. I'm like, I'm at a 5. And I don't know if that was a 5, but thinking back, it probably was. Um, but that was around like 12:30 p.m. or so, I would say. My mom was there, my husband Ahmed was there, and my sister Didi was there. And the nurse, I asked in my birth plan to have like minimal people in the room, and the midwife just came in to like check. I also was not getting too many cervical checks. One, I didn't want a lot of cervical checks because honestly, how much you're dilated is not really important. I know, controversial, because everyone's like, oh my God, she's 10 centimeters dilated and she's this much effaced and whatever. And like they think it's time to push. But sometimes you can be 10 centimeters dilated and you're not ready to push. I just wanted to feel that natural urge to push. And I didn't want a cervical check because I wanted minimal interventions, and that is an intervention. But also they couldn't check me because of my water breaking. So nothing going up there because of the risk of infection. But once I was in labor and things started moving along, every time she would check in, I would tell her like, "Oh, I'm at a 5, I'm at a 7, whatever." She would pump the pitocin up. And at one point, it just started getting intense. Like at first, I could just breathe through it, and then really quickly, it started getting really intense, and I needed counter pressure. So my husband was doing counter pressure on my hips, and I was in different positions. I was on the ball. It was like on like my elbows, like off the bed, just trying to move. And then I was like, I need to throw up. And they were like, oh, okay. So they gave me this bag. I threw up. And that is like also another sign that like you're in active labor when you throw up and when you need to go number two, which also I did a lot, which is completely normal, natural. People even do it during pushing, but I did it a lot before, and I threw up a lot. So yeah, my doula also came by once things started getting more intense. I texted her and I was like, "Can you come by?" But she had something, so she had a replacement doula actually come in for the actual birth. But she came in and gave me some like combs for like also like kind of like distraction, and yeah, so she also brought the tens machine, which is like, you know, that machine. I'll put it up on the screen. It like vibrates you. And she put it on my back, and you can like pulse it every time you get a contraction, and it's just supposed to distract you. It doesn't like take away the pain or anything. You suddenly see a lump right here. It's because my cat is being a menace and I had to put him in there. So she brought the tens machine. I keep getting this wrong for some reason. I think it's called tens. Um, and so, yeah, every time I'd get a contraction, I had the tens machine. I would pulse it and I would breathe through the contraction. My husband would do counter pressure. He could see the contractions coming on the screen. Like it was like a little graph. So he could see when one was coming, it was building up, and he would like put counter pressure. And yeah, things really escalated fast. Like things just started getting more and more intense, and I could feel like the contractions coming on more often. I couldn't even like focus on anything. Everyone was like whoever talked to me outside of my bubble, I like the nurse would try to be like blah blah blah. I don't even know what she was saying to me. I don't know what she was saying to me. I just was so in the zone that I like don't even remember what she was saying. But they were getting so intense. I was still breathing through them using the breathing exercises that I had learned, the counter pressure. But then it got to a point where it was like super intense. And the only thing that I was willing to do, or I was more open to, which I researched before going into labor, was the gas. So I'll put some information about the gas up as well because I right now cannot remember what it's called. But it's basically like laughing gas that they give you at the dentist. Does not take away pain. It kind of makes you a little bit like loopy, like a little, but not like too much. Some people, it doesn't even affect them at all. So you inhale with the contraction and then exhale it back into the tube because if you exhale it into the air, people can get affected. So you inhale and then exhale with the contraction. And it's just a distraction, basically. That was the only thing that I was willing to do because of the Pitocin. I think if it wasn't for the Pitocin, I wouldn't have even used that. Maybe, I don't know, who knows? But I wouldn't have wanted to use that. But it was getting so intense, and I was going back and forth from the bathroom, and sometimes I couldn't even like get up and walk because I would like try to walk and then a contraction would come and I would have to sit back down on the toilet and like breathe through it. And to be honest, like my mom, my husband, my sister, they were so amazing. My mom was like, relax your body, which is also something so important when you're in labor. And she would be like, relax, because she could see me like crunching my toes and like squeezing and tensing. And she's like, just relax your body, relax. And like that helped me so much, as well as affirmations, like just them telling me I'm doing so good, and just how amazing I was doing. And then my own affirmation, which I learned before going into labor, was that I can do anything for a minute, because contractions are a minute long. And they were getting like super close together. And I would just keep repeating that in my head. I can do anything for a minute. I can do anything for a minute. So yeah, it was just getting super intense. I just remember the nurse saying, maybe you should call the replacement doula to come in. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't think I need a replacement doula. But they texted and they're like, okay, like tell the to tell the replacement doula, Kirsten, to come in. And then also the midwife came at one point. Oh yeah, this was before things started getting super intense. The midwife came in to check me because, wait, was that before? No, that was after the doula arrived. Okay, after the doula came, the midwife, they were like, okay, let's do a cervical check. And the doula was like, Kirsten was like, do you want to know the number? Like, are you interested in knowing the number? And I was like, I don't really care. Um, I think this was before things got intense. I don't remember. But yeah, it was before things were too intense, because I was still like aware, like I was still in the world. And she came and she checked me, and she was like, okay, you're at like 5 or 6, but like you're like, you could go to a 7. And that didn't mean anything to me, but like still I was like, okay, that's more than halfway there technically. But it didn't mean it didn't affect me at all in the process, like mentally. So anyway, I'm like still breathing through the contractions, and like they were just getting so intense. I couldn't focus on the outside world. And then at one point they were like I think everyone like realized that I was in active labor except for me. And they were like, okay, let's sit you up so like baby can engage downwards. Um, I think you're almost there. And I was like, I was so confused because I was like, are you sure? It felt so fast. Like it felt like forever, but fast. I was like, how am I almost there? How is that possible? So they sit me upright in like a squat position, and they get the bar, and I'm holding the bar. And once I'm upright, I'm like having this weird urge, and I'm like, I feel like I need to poop again. And my doula was like, you're ready to push. Like that's the feeling you get. And I'm like, what? Are you sure? Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, push now? Like, are you serious? I was like, wait a minute, how? Are you sure? Like I was getting confused, which is also a sign that you're, ready to push. Oh, actually, I just remembered. At one point, I did feel like I can't do this anymore. Like I felt like I can't do this anymore. And obviously when I go to the bathroom, I don't have the gas or anything like. So this gas, when you're not using it, it's not affecting you. It goes away. Like you just take a few regular breaths and you're normal. So the gas, whenever I was like getting up to go to the bathroom and I didn't have the gas, there was no like distraction from contractions or anything. Like I could feel how intense they were. And at one point I just felt like, I cannot do this. I can't do this anymore. I was feeling like maybe I needed the epidural. Like I was like, I think I need it. I didn't say it. I never said it. I just felt it. And then I remembered that most people say that when you feel like you can't do it anymore, that means you're in transition and you're like almost there. You're almost ready to push. And so when I felt that, I tried to remind myself that in the moment. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Then I was like, wait a minute. I think I'm in transition. So back to being in the upright position. Yeah, I just couldn't believe that I was gonna push. And I was like, already? Like, it feels like this is too fast. And they're like, okay, call the midwife in. And I seriously just couldn't believe that it was happening. And they're like, okay, they removed the gas at this point. Like, I wanted to be present, like fully present for the pushing and the birth part. So they removed the gas. My doula was like, do you guys like the smell of peppermint? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, I have some like essential oil. She pulls out some essential oil, puts it in her hand, rubs her hands together and goes like this to me, my mom and Ahmed. And we were like, whoa, like that just woke us up. Like I felt so ready. Like I was like alert and ready at that point. And at that point when I was breathing on the exhale, it felt like I was like pushing. And my doula was like, oh my God, she's pushing, like it's happening. They're like, the midwife doesn't even need to check you. Like, why would she check you? But anyway, the midwife came in to check me. I don't even remember what she said because I was like, I'm pushing, like it's happening, like she's coming. So at first I'm pushing in an upright position. I'm like breathing and pushing. And I kept putting my neck down, but my doula kept reminding me to put I was putting my neck up. And my doula kept reminding me to bear down and put my neck downwards. And like I just was trying to relax my body and like let my uterus do its thing. And it was the craziest feeling. Like it was insane. Like I couldn't believe that I was like pushing. And we tried like different positions. At first I was upright and then I was kind of like on all fours. And then I think I was like about to lay down. And then my nurse was like, you did not come this far to just give birth on your back. I don't know if it was my nurse or my midwife, but she was like, you're not giving birth on your back, pretty much. Like you did all this. And so they turned me on my side. My mom is holding my leg and it's just happening. Like I don't even remember like trying to push. I guess I was like breathing with the exhale, the push was coming. So the contraction whenever the contraction comes, that's when you push. And yeah, it just was like happening. And my midwife was like, at one point, she was like, I can see a head of hair. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Like it felt so crazy. And they're like, do you want to like feel her head? And I was like, okay. So I felt her head, I could feel her hair. And I think that motivated me to keep going. And so like I'd breathe and then I would push and I was like screaming. It was very like primal screaming. And I would say that's like kind of similar to the movies, I guess, like where I was like, like grunting and screaming and all those noises. But it just was feeling so natural. Beforehand, I was like, I don't want to do all that. But like, it just happened naturally. And so I'm pushing and pushing. And like, I can hear my husband saying, like, oh my God, I can see her. My mom, they were so excited. And I'm like, I don't know. I was there, but I wasn't there. It was like I was in a different realm. I was not with them. I was so focused. I was so in the zone. And then I pushed again and then I felt her again and I felt her hair. It was so insane. And at one point my midwife was like, okay, at one point, like you're gonna be pushing, but I'm gonna tell you to stop because I'm gonna try to stretch around to like prevent tearing or minimize tearing, which spoiler alert, it did not prevents tearing, which is also very normal. And yeah, so like mid push, I had to stop. And trust me, it burned. Like it felt like fire. Like it felt like the ring, like something called the ring of fire. I felt that. I was like, holy shit, like this is burning. This is crazy. It felt like an explosion. I won't get too graphic. I'll save that for private if you want to talk to me in private. So yeah, at one point I paused, and my mom was like, and she tried to stretch me out, and then they were like, oh my god, she's almost here, she's almost here. And like I was like, okay, and I pushed one more big push, and like plop, like she just came out, like her head first and then the rest of the body, and she was on me. I was crying, I'm sobbing, my husband sobbing. It was the craziest thing. I couldn't believe it. It was so like, I don't even know how, I don't have words to describe how it felt. Like it was so amazing to meet her. Like I was like, I cannot believe it. Even to that moment, she was on my chest. I couldn't believe that just happened, that I just went through that. And yeah, it was one of the greatest things ever that I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm so proud of myself for being able to do it kind of how I wanted, with minimal interventions, under the circumstances that I was under. Yeah, it was insane. And it was beautiful, and it was great, and I believe that every woman can have the birth that she wants, and I believe that every woman can give birth physiologically under the right circumstances. Yeah, it was great. And now for the post-birth, because birth is not over until the placenta comes out. And at that point, because I had already gotten Pitocin, I was bleeding a lot, and they were like, we need to give you a shot of Pitocin to eject the placenta. I wanted to birth the placenta, but again, because of the situation, and I had already gotten Pitocin, and I was bleeding a lot, they were like, we need to give you the injection. So they gave me the injection, and the placenta came out. And when that happened, part of the membranes, so not the placenta, well, the placenta came out, it was crazy. I was like, whoa, like that was a crazier feeling, like it was unexpected. And this was all happening during my golden hour. I think this is my least favorite part about my experience. I wish that this part didn't really happen, but like the birth overall was positive, and then this part kind of like sprinkled a little bit of rain on my parade, especially during my golden hour with my baby. But yeah, the placenta came out, and then they were like, oh no, like some of the membrane, so some of the sac is stuck in your uterus. And I didn't know what that meant, because I'm like with my baby here, and I'm like happy, and they're like, we need to remove this membrane from your uterus. So they called the OB in, and the OB came to check, and that pain that I felt of them removing the membrane was worse than birth. Like I would do birth natural or whatever, unmedicated, all over again, like 20 times, but I would not recommend to anyone. I mean, you can't control it. Like it just happens, but I wouldn't like do that part again. The membrane being stuck and them trying to remove it, and because I didn't have an epidural, I could feel everything. And at that point, they were like, we can give you some like medication, and we can numb the area if you want. And my doula was like, you did it. You gave birth unmedicated. Like, don't say no to this if you don't want to. And I was like, no, please give me the pain meds. I didn't want the epidural and the meds to affect my baby. But now that she's out, like, and this hurts, like this hurts a different type of pain. Give me the meds. So they numbed the area, they gave me the meds, and even with that, I could feel it, and it hurt, and they were removing the membrane, and they were making me cough, and then they were sewing me up, and it felt like it was taking forever. And like I had a 2nd-degree tear which is not the worst. There's, I think, 4 degrees, and I had a 2nd-degree tear, and that's completely normal. It's unavoidable. And when I talked to my midwife after, like, recapping the birth, she was telling me how beautifully everything went, and everything was so, like, perfect. And then the membranes got stuck, and she was like, this is not something anyone can control or predict. It just happens. And she was telling me that if you wanted to do an unmedicated birth again, you totally could. Like, this, it's not likely that this would happen to you again. So, like, don't let that damper your birth experience, put a damper on your birth experience. And it didn't. My birth was beautiful and I loved it, but that part was painful. And I just thought I needed to be transparent and to share that with you, because it's very dangerous for anything to be stuck in the uterus, because you can hemorrhage. So yeah, it just felt like forever. They were taking it out and then they were sewing me up, and I wish that it didn't happen because it interfered a bit with my golden hour, like I said. But I still got the birth that I wanted, despite that little hiccup, and despite, honestly, all the things that I was not expecting. I just, like, feel grateful that I had such an amazing team around me, and I'm so happy that no one ever made me feel pressure to have the epidural or made me feel like I wasn't coping well. They all were there encouraging me. They were all there, like, making me feel like I could do it. And I feel like that's a huge part of why I did it. And my doula was like, you're only the 2nd person I've ever seen give birth on Pitocin without medication. She's like, that is amazing. It's not done. And I think she's been a doula for like 15 years, which, like, pat on the back. Like, I will flex that for the rest of my life, because it's one of my proudest moments in my entire life. And I'm so happy that I did it almost in the way that I wanted. And I'm so proud of myself. And I think that every woman can have the birth that she wants to have. If you're watching this and you're pregnant, or you're gonna get pregnant, or you're giving birth soon, or whatever, just know that you can have the birth that you want. Like, you totally can. It's a mindset, and as long as you think of the contractions as something that's bringing you closer to your baby and not something that's trying to harm you, you don't want to go into fight or flight. This is something natural. That's also something I was reminding myself of. Every contraction is bringing me closer to my baby, and it's like, this is what your body is supposed to do. And don't think of it as pain as much as you can. And I think that also helped me to get to the birth that I wanted. And yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, I should mention the whole total time, the labor to birth took like 6.5 hours. And the pushing portion was like 30 minutes, or less than 30 minutes, which is insane to me. I can't believe it, because first-time moms, and like when you give birth the first time, it can take 3 to 4 hours to push. So I feel like all of my prep, my exercise, my affirmations, my breathing, all of that helped me get to the birth that I wanted. I think the takeaway from this is always be flexible, of course, but, you know, have a birth plan, have people that believe in you, at least if it's just one person that believes in you. Don't let anyone in that birth room, wherever you are, that doesn't believe in your plan, because like, even one opinion could, while you're in it, could change your mind. So make sure everyone's on board with you and believes in you. And if you need to tell everyone get out, then do that. If you're the only one that believes in you, then like, that can be enough. Just send everyone who doesn't believe in you out. Don't let what anyone else says get to you. You can do whatever you say your mind to. Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons is that women are amazing. You should always be flexible, but also you can do what you want to do. You can do whatever you want. You can have the birth that you want, and it doesn't have to be traumatic, and your team is important. So yeah, that's all I have. That's, I think, my birth story. I don't know if I missed anything. It's been 3 months now since I gave birth, and Jude is amazing. I love her to death. And I'm like feeling much better in my body. I feel like stronger. Not back to what I used to be. I don't expect to be back to my old body or self. I'm a new person now. But yeah, there's so much more to talk about postpartum and breastfeeding and all of that. I can talk about all of it. But yeah, it's not gonna fit in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope it motivated you or encouraged you to try to have the birth that you want, whether it's with an epidural or not, or even if it's a C-section, whatever you want. Just feel empowered in your decision. I hope that's what this video is.